I'm a senior pastor of Elevation Christian Ministry. If I'm not making any mistake, I have killed more than 7.
These African pastors have not only engaged in numerous fake miracles, but have also had their hands stained with blood. Stick around to the end of this video, as we will be showing you 15 African pastors you should stay away from. Number 15, Reverend King. Reverend Dr. Chukwuemeka Ezeogo, who is widely recognized as Reverend King, is a clergyman who hails from Anambra State, Nigeria, and the General Overseer of Christian Praying Assembly situated in Lagos. This clergyman is one who has had his hands stained with blood, despite claiming to be a messenger of the Almighty, who is greatly against condemnation and murder. He was said to have added a disciplinarian title to his cleric ordination, as he was referred to as a no-nonsense pastor who flogs his members whenever they misbehave as a way of correcting them. Around the year 2006, Reverend King's disciplinary action led to the death of one of his members by name Ann Uzo, who he flogged mercilessly alongside others for fornicating. He did not just beat them up this time like he always does, but poured petrol on the said members and thereafter set them ablaze. Ann Uzo and the others were later rushed to the hospital where they got medical attention, but sadly Ann could not withstand the burns and gave up a few days later. The matter got to the table of the then Lagos State government, which led to the arrest of Reverend King. After proper investigation was carried out to ascertain the actual cause of Ann's death, Reverend King was the following year sent to 20 years imprisonment for attempted murder of the other 5 and subsequently sent to death by hanging after all proof that he truly committed the crime were provided. Number 14, Paul Mackenzie. Paul Mackenzie is another self-acclaimed man of God who is tagged the highest ritual killer in Africa, following his numerous preachings against the regular way of life and brainwashing members of his church called Good News International Ministry to always starve to death, as that's the only way they could see Jesus according to the ritualist of a pastor. It was gathered from sources that the Kenyan pastor would sexually abuse his members, especially underage girls, before making them starve to death, after deceiving them that doing so would hasten their exit from this wicked world and be with Master Jesus. It was gathered that after their death, Mackenzie and his associates would harvest some of their organs and thereafter bury them in shallow graves. This whole heinous act of his finally came to light after reports reached the Kenyan authorities as he moved his followers in their numbers to the Shakahola forest, where they were asked to fast and pray until they eventually die. Passerbys who noticed a large number of people dying and being buried then took up the matter and reported to the necessary authorities, which led to the arrest of Mackenzie and about 100 others who were his associates. After his arrest, many bodies were exhumed from the forest, while some were still alive but halfway gone, and deeper investigation revealed that most of the already buried members had their organs harvested and were sold for ritual purposes. Mackenzie has since then been sent to jail by the Kenyan government. Number 13, Pastor Chidebere Okoroafor. This pastor is a presiding pastor over Altar of Solution and Healing Ministries in Oyigbo, Rivers State, Nigeria. Pastor Okoroafor in the year 2017 was said to have allegedly killed one of his members, who was a chorister and his mistress by name Consilia Ezenwa. He was said to have had an affair with the said lady and ended up putting her in the family way. After getting her pregnant, he asked her to get rid of the pregnancy, but Ezenwa refused, and then, in order not to jeopardize his reputation being a clergyman, Okoroafor decided to take the girl's life in an uncompleted building where he tricked her to, and then also tricked a friend of hers whose name was Ufuoma and was said to be aware of their affair, to a nearby bush where he also took her life with a 9-month-old baby who she carried behind her at the time of this incident, all in a quest to cover his tracks. After his both victims' disappearance, the community members embarked on a search which led to them discovering the victims' decomposing bodies at an uncompleted building and a bush where he took their lives. After a series of investigation, it was discovered that the said clergyman was behind their sudden disappearance and death. He was immediately taken in by the Rivers State Police, where he was found guilty after a series of investigation and thereafter sent to death by hanging. Number 12, Pastor Melisizwe Monqo. Melisizwe is a South African pastor who heads over God's Work International Ministries in Cape Town, South Africa. This pastor and 2 others, which one was his wife by name Sifosihle Pamba, and Pumlani Kusheka, who was his hired assassin, were said to have paid a lady over 3 million rands insurance payout. It was gathered that Pastor Melisizwe and his wife Pamba had taken life insurance policies on behalf of members of their church and thereafter hired a hitman to eliminate them so they can be the beneficiaries of the insurance payout. Their victim, whose name was Lumfo Mohapi, was said to have been tricked by her pastor and wife around the year 2018 to go for a job interview, where they had already kept their hitman who would assassinate her. Mohapi's body was later found with multiple stabs to the chest, which sparked reactions and thereby led into investigations, which revealed that a life insurance policy worth 3 million rands and a funeral policy worth 50,000 rands were taken on her behalf by the said pastor shortly before her passing. Pastor Melisizwe and his other 2 accomplices have since been arrested and facing the law. Number 11, Pastor Kolawole Samson. This Nigerian Ondo State-based pastor was said to have been sentenced to death by hanging by the Ondo State High Court in Akure, the state capital. Pastor Kolawole Samson was said to own a fish pond at Okegbo local government area where he reared fish aside his usual church business. In the year 2016, a young boy identified as Ayo Olaniyi was said to have gone frog hunting with his friend in the same area where the fish pond belonging to Pastor Kolawole was situated. Then one thing led to the other, and the clergyman in quotes caught young Olaniyi with a cutlass in the head, inflicting deep injury on him. Young Olaniyi was then rushed to the hospital but couldn't make it as the cut was so deep, leaving him with internal bleeding. The pastor was then arrested by the police, taking him for questioning, and was thereafter sentenced to death by hanging. Number 10, Bishop Prince Ufuoma. Popular Bishop Ufuoma, who is a senior pastor at Elevation Christian Ministries at Orokpo Rank Street with a branch at Abraka area of Delta State, was this time arrested by God himself as he made a serious confession of all his evil doings despite being an ordained man of God. In Bishop Ufuoma's confession, he stated that he was desperate to make money, gain crowd in his church, and respect nationwide, and as such had several dealings with the devil through his fellow men of God who initiated him into different occult groups where they drink human blood and in most cases sleep in cemeteries, all in a quest for crowd in their church and wealth.
My name is Prince Ufuoma Mina. I have a church. I'm the senior pastor of Elevation Christian Ministry. My life is a big journey because of desperation. That desperation took me so far. I've slept in the cemetery for 7 nights. Not just the cemetery. They have to dig a fresh corpse out for me to sleep. Then in the morning, I will go out. In the night, I will come back.
He even went as far as stating that he helped most churches stage miracles and even called out Christ Mercy Land owned by popular prophet Jeremiah Omotofufeyin, who is also being dragged by popular activist Very Dark Man.
The miracles, everything you are seeing are stage miracles. We rent the wish years, we rent the clutches. We have people we settle for all those stage work. This was what I've been doing for him and so many other pastors. I've also worked for Mercy Land.
During this confession, Bishop Prince Ufuoma also stated that after being initiated into several cults as a man of God, he can boldly count about 7 persons who he aspired with his own hands. Now, wow.
If I'm not making any mistake, I have killed more than 7.
Number 9, Pastor Thomas Muhosha. Reverend Father Thomas was a Malawian priest of the Zomba Diocese of Catholic Church. He was said to be sentenced to a 30 years imprisonment by the Malawian High Court sitting in the year 2018 after a suspension from priesthood following his involvement in the killing of an albino by name MacDonald Masambuka. It was gathered that Father Thomas and a few other accomplices had plotted the death of a 22-year-old MacDonald who was born with albinism, which is a medical condition which makes one lighter than necessary due to low melanin pigment in the blood. So the young man was found dead in a state that seemed like he had been strangled after being missing for some time. Investigations following his demise finally revealed that Reverend Father Thomas was the mastermind behind the whole plot, which also led to his suspension as a priest from the Roman Catholic and thereafter a 30 years jail term for the crime. Unfortunately, Reverend Father Thomas could not face the wrath of the law by completing his prison sentence as he died of an unknown ailment while in prison in the year 2022. Number 8, Pastor Lekan Ogundipe. Pastor Lekan Ogundipe is an assistant pastor of the Celestial Church of Christ Comfort Parish, which is located in Omitota area of Ile-Ife in Osun State, and is another pastor on our list who has had his hands stained with blood. The incident took place sometime around February in the year 2024, and it was gathered that it all came about following an argument which he had with a senior pastor whose name was Maurice Fadehon, who angrily retrieved the church keys from young Pastor Lekan after he assaulted the prophetess in the church prior to the time of this gruesome incident. Pastor Lekan was said to have beaten up the lady, and his action got the senior colleague upset, which led to him collecting the keys to the church, which was initially in Lekan's possession, just to serve as a punishment. Unknown to senior Pastor Maurice, Lekan didn't take that lightly and had vowed to take his own pound of flesh by buying Pastor Maurice. It was revealed that the senior pastor had gone to church on that fateful day and was kneeling in front of the altar while praying when he noticed a movement behind him. Before he could know what was going on, somebody had attacked him from behind and tried to suffocate him to death. And on trying to defend himself, he was then stabbed with a screwdriver by Pastor Lekan. After carrying out this act, Lekan quickly dragged his body to the generator house, poured some petrol on him, and then set him ablaze in a quest to cover up his tracks. He then rushed out to inform residents about what had happened to the pastor and even rushed to the church owner's house to lie to him that he found the senior pastor burning by the generator house in the church. On people reaching the scene of the incident, they noticed where late Pastor Maurice had been stabbed and also noticed some blood stain on the robe of the young Pastor Lekan, which made residents suspect a foul play and therefore called on the police, who took Lekan for questioning and subsequently discovered he actually killed the senior pastor. He has since been taken to prison and is serving his jail term. Number 7, Pastor Sylvester Ofori. This Ghanaian pastor is based in Orlando, Florida in the US and has been married to his wife Barbara Tommy for about 5 years. But all of a sudden, the pastor who happened to be the head of Floodgates of Heaven Church in Orlando got abusive with his wife along the line of their marriage, beating her up on several occasions and even threatening to take her life.
Promise me, if I don't kill your sister, then me, I am fake. You got the video, right?
Yeah, I got it.
Call the cop.
Barbara's family, hearing about this new attitude towards their daughter, then asked their daughter to file for a divorce, which led to Barbara leaving her husband at the time and moving back to her family house. Around September 2020, Pastor Sylvester was sent to have then traced her down to her workplace, where they had an argument, and then one thing led to the other, which made him shoot her 7 times, leading to her death. Following her demise, the family had the pastor arrested, and the case has been in the US court since then, till around July 2024, when Pastor Sylvester was finally sentenced to life imprisonment on an account of first-degree murder. Number 6. Pastor Sigeme Petro. Pastor Petro is a Malawian cleric who resides in Balaska district in the eastern region of Malawi. The pastor was said to be married to a single mother who he accepted with her 1-year-old daughter. Everything was said to be going on smoothly between the two until some months into their marriage when his wife left her child with Pastor Petro, who was her stepfather, to go grab something outside the house. On her return to the room where she had left her daughter and husband, she found her 1-year-old daughter laying lifeless. Upon questioning her husband of a pastor, he denied not knowing what had happened to the 1-year-old child, and the lady, unsatisfied with her husband's explanation, reported him to the elders of their village, who further interrogated Pastor Petro before he finally confessed to have strangled the 1-year-old. But for what reason is what we still do not know till date. The pastor who had carried out such a heinous act was immediately handed over to the Balaska police, who took him in while he waited for court hearing and eventually faced the wrath of the law. Number 5. Pastor Anthony Isreal. Pastor Anthony was a pastor of Jesus Disciple Assembly Church at Omogua area of Ejigbo in Lagos State. The pastor was said to have accommodation issues and was out of pity given an apartment for free by one Mrs. Temitope Olugbade, who was a member of the church. One would expect the said pastor to pay this lady back with good, but instead Pastor Anthony Isreal was said to have taken the life of Mrs. Temitope's son, who was 17 years old and has just written his WAEC in the year 2024 with flying colors and was hoping to write JAMB so as to further his studies. What exactly led to his demise is still not known by the public, but it was gathered that Pastor Anthony has slit the throat of young Abdulrahman with a knife while he was asleep, and thereafter took the boy's body to the next room, which was incompleted at the time, and buried him in a shallow grave, and also made sure to abscond in order not to be arrested. The victim's mother and residents were said to have found out about what had gone wrong following the boy's disappearance, and their dog, which kept barking and giving them signal towards the room where the boy had been buried. Neighbors then followed the dog there and noticed the place had been tampered with, and on checking, the boy's body, which was beginning to decompose, was found. The pastor who initially absconded was said to have come back the next day, maybe so he is not suspected, but was immediately handed over to operatives of police at the Ejigbo division, where he would be arraigned in a court of law and most likely be sentenced to jail. Number 4. Pastor Boniface Mwamposa. The story of Tanzanian Pastor Boniface, who is the head of Arise and Shine Ministries Tanzania, is a tragic one, as the man of God was said to be known for hosting several crusades across the country. But this time, he flew down to Dar es Salaam for a prayer meeting which hosted hundreds of people in a very small venue. At the course of the service, it was gathered that members were ushered to a certain area where they were expected to walk on anointed oil before the tragic incident took place that night. Due to the overcrowdedness of the place, members were said to have fell and trampled on each other mercilessly while jostling each other with elbows and knees, leading to the death of about 20 persons, while leaving hundreds of them injured in the stampede-like horrible incident. This incident took place around the year 2020, and the pastor Boniface Mwamposa and 5 others of his aides were arrested by the Tanzanian authorities, blaming the said clergyman for the cause of their death and several other charges, although the man of God was said to be released 2 years later after meeting his bail conditions. Number 3. Pastor Erinmola Adetokunbo. This pastor is the most dangerous on our list of pastors who have stained their hands with blood. He was a Lagos-based pastor and was in the year 2022 sentenced to death along with his accomplice Adedoyin for allegedly buying a 7-year-old baby. This gruesome incident was said to have taken place in the Ikorodu area of Lagos State in the year 2017, where Pastor Erinmola and Adedoyin conspired to buy 7-year-old Kazim Rafiu for ritual purpose. It was gathered that after buying the little boy, he was then beheaded and his head was buried underneath their church altar located in the same Ikorodu, and then after some vital organs were said to have been harvested from the child's body, his other remains were dumped in the canal. The pastor was then apprehended by residents who suspected a foul play in the pastor's movement at the time, who also almost lynched him before he quickly mentioned his accomplice Adedoyin. They were then both taken to the police station before they showed the police where they had hidden the other parts of the boy's body. They both were remanded in prison for about 5 years and later had a hearing where the judge's ruling was a death sentence for the both of them for buying young Rafiu Kazim. Number 2. Elipidos Rwegoshora. On May 30, 2024, one Tanzanian albino child by name Sigeme Petro, who was 2 years old, was said to have gone missing. After looking everywhere for the little child, his body was later found in a latrine in a mutilated state. His parents then involved the police, and then series of investigations were carried out to apprehend who might have carried out such a heinous act. And it was discovered that one Father Elipidos Rwegoshora of the Catholic Diocese of Bukoba in Tanzania and 9 others had had a hand in the child's demise. This led to the Catholic body instantly putting a stop to every pastoral activity handled by the accused pastor, pending when the case is being resolved. Father Elipidos and his accomplices, which one was even rumored to be the deceased father by name Novadvenant, has since been taken in by the authorities and are awaiting trial while more evidence surfaces. And lastly, at our number 1 is Pastor Peter Michonza. This clergyman is the one presiding over popular local church called New Jerusalem Deliverance Ministry in Okene local government area. In the year 2022, Pastor Peter was accused of not just only running a church, but also running a labor ward for pregnant women and selling bulletproof water to people as a subsidiary of his church business. The pastor was said to have been arrested around September of the same year by the Department of the State Service following numerous reports from the people of the local government and council chairman, who made it known that the practices carried out by the said pastor has led to the death of many in the community. The man of God, whose hand has been stained with the blood of his members, was remanded and slammed with charges of homicide, murder and impersonation and several others, and is believed to be serving a jail term presently. May God Almighty save you from wolves in sheep clothing so you don't fall their victims. Please type amen in the comments and claim it, and I'll see you in the next video.